Welcome back to Hot Roster today. Gary and Cam still with you, now breaking down some matchups from Week 5 that we found kind of interesting, Cam. So let's get right into this. Carlos Hyde was a 1-point favorite over Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller, man. This dude is getting so many touches and not doing anything with them.
Lamar Miller, it's one of those things, though, even when he was with Miami, kind of overrated. And everyone's thinking, wow, change of scenery, he's going to do his thing. Not impressed. I know it's the Minnesota Vikings, but still, Gary, and you look at this guy, a lot of people in their fantasy leagues, they draft him really high going, this is a perfect situation. It's not. He's just one of those guys. I don't think he's really proven enough to be an upper echelon guy.
Well, the one thing he had going for him, and the one reason that you would kind of think, he's an underdog in this game, maybe I take him in this Hot Roster matchup, is he'd always gotten the touches. I mean, this is someone who had not had less than 19 carries in a game coming into Week 5, only has 8 against the Vikings. But again, you mentioned it. The Vikings defense.
20 yards and only 1 catch out of the backfield.
But the Vikings defense is really good. They might be one of the 3 best defenses in the NFL right now. So I feel like taking him in that matchup was kind of a sucker's thing. You just want to avoid Minnesota. Hyde finishes up with 78 yards and a touchdown. Miller gets 20 yards, no touchdown. 36 yards receiving also for Hyde. So obviously he won that matchup.
Hyde crushes.
He absolutely crushed that.
What do you think about the Kaepernick factor, though? Because it's one of these things Gabbard, he's not going to, eventually 49er fans, they're calling for Kaepernick.
They were running so many option plays with Blaine Gabbert, and Blaine Gabbert was holding on to that football.
He was.
It almost looked like they were broken plays, once a drive. It was crazy. But, there's the philosophy that some of these guys run better out of the shotgun and run better with more separation between them and the offensive line. So maybe Hyde is one of those guys, but just Lamar Miller though, man.
Disappointment.
I look at this guy, 115 touches so far this season.
You're a Dolphin fan.
I am a Dolphin fan. And this is why you don't pay for running backs. This is just what happens. But 115 touches so far this season for Lamar Miller. Has not scored a touchdown. The next closest running back is Eddie Lacy with 57.
Another guy that really hasn't proven anything since he's been in the National Football League.
Tough there. Wide receiver matchup to talk about. Mike Evans was a 2-point favorite last night, the Monday night game against Kelvin Benjamin. Obviously, a lot of factors at play with this. Derek Anderson started for the Panthers. Evans gets into the end zone, and that was the big difference in this matchup. 89 yards for Evans and that touchdown. Benjamin with 70 yards at the end of the day. Seemed like Derek Anderson was mostly focused on throwing to Greg Olsen.
Yeah, he was.
And that's about it.
You know what? If you're him too, you got to go to the Sasquatch. Greg Olsen is so good. He's so reliable. But the thing is, Benjamin, like Olsen, he has the body type to destroy those Tampa Bay DBs. I'm thinking, it was interesting to me, the game plan of Carolina, it should have been more Benjamin and Olsen and less running of the ball because Tampa Bay's DBs are all under 6 feet. They're small. They have huge height advantages. I expected Benjamin to get more. What do you have? 5 for 70?
Yeah.
I expect him to have maybe 8 or 9 catches in a game like that.
It even seemed like the playbook and the play calling inside the red zone was very different, vastly different from what we're used with the Panthers. And that makes sense. Cam Newton's a guy who calls his own number a lot in that area of the field. We saw Cameron Artis-Payne finally score a couple touchdowns, but the passing game wasn't as heavily utilized. And I would say for Tampa, if you're someone who had Mike Evans, congratulations, first off, because Mike Evans won this matchup.
Exactly.
But, this was a team, Tampa Bay, that was just letting Jameis Winston drop back and throw all game. But we saw, even with their third-string running back, Jacquizz Rodgers, they gave him the ball 11 times in that first series down.
Jacquizz Rodgers is 5'6", Gary, and he's carving up the Panther D.
But it seems like they don't want Jameis Winston to throw the ball as much as he was. That's something moving forward. If you're a Mike Evans owner, I know he got 12 targets in this game, but still, that's a little. I'd like to see Winston drop back more if I'm an owner of Mike Evans.
I agree, but and you're watching him throw. Other than when Mike Evans had the double move pump and he had the easy touchdown. He had tons of receivers open the whole game. Cameron Brate too. That he overthrow him. He overthrows Evans. I'm concerned about, if you're a Jameis Winston owner, I'm concerned about his accuracy because other than 1 or 2 throws, he was brutal in that game.
He has some accuracy issues, and that is not
problem.
Something that I think is being hidden well by him. Let's move to a very interesting matchup on the board from last week with maybe the 2 best running backs right now in the NFL from a fantasy perspective at the very least. DeMarco Murray was a half-point favorite facing the Dolphins against Ezekiel Elliott facing the Bengals. And on paper, it would seem like Murray had the better of the matchups. Cincinnati does have that stout defense. They made those aforementioned Dolphins look pretty childish on their Thursday night matchup. But Elliott finishes with 134 yards, gets into the end zone twice on just 15 carries. Murray had a great game, too. 27 carries, 121 yards. But those 2 touchdowns were the difference. So Elliott comes out on top. What a game.
You said it, Gary. And on hot rosters, this was the matchup. And
Yeah.
you feel bad for people who took Murray
Oh,
because
yeah.
he's awesome. In any other matchup, he wins. We didn't know Elliott was going to bust off a 60-yard touchdown run. And I'll tell you something, that score is not indicative. Dallas could have named their number in that game. In the first half, they literally could have been up 4 or 5 touchdowns in that game. Cincinnati was abysmal. And I'll tell you, with that offensive line, Ezekiel Elliott owners, you might want to take him in every single matchup on hot roster because I'll tell you something, he is exploding and he looks like he's getting stronger and stronger. Feed the man.
And it's so strange to see him with just 15 carries because this is a guy who was piling up the carries. Like
134.
Jason Garrett has made it clear that even though they run a pretty monotonous offense, they don't get a ton of plays off the past couple seasons, but they like to run the ball and kind of take the pressure off of Dak Prescott.
Almost
Maybe
9
that
yards
changes.
a carry?
It's fantastic.
Buddy, that's amazing.
And also DeMarco Murray, finally, he was I believe it was 18 for 18 targets to catches coming into that game. Finally didn't catch a target. Still just 24 for 25. Disappointing season for DeMarco Murray.
Tennessee's tough though for fantasy owners because they go to the tight end so much. You know it's a running back and tight end type of team and Mariota.
As I always say, anything you do against the Dolphins doesn't actually count.
Count.
Okay, Julio Jones against Odell Beckham Jr.
Yikes.
This wasn't as pretty a matchup in actuality as it seemed on paper. Julio, 29 yards on 2 catches after that big 300-yard game against the Panthers. Odell Beckham finally got into the end zone, which I feel like we were all kind of expecting. It was a little iffy. The NFL's got to keep their stars happy, Kim.
Yes,
you know
they
this.
do. I don't know
but,
if a foot could go sideways like that, but it was tight. It was a tight call.
It was tight. But the narrative coming into that game was that they were going to want to force feed him. They were going to make him happy. Eli was going to get the ball.
That's
Look,
not good, though.
Touchdown expectancy, too. Like, at some point, a guy like that, it's not as if he was having that bad a season. The yards were there, the catches were there, but he hadn't gotten in the end zone yet. So he does, and he wins this matchup.
Yeah, sure, he gets 12 targets, but you look at the numbers, they're pretty pedestrian. 5 for 56, and that was with the 1 touchdown. You got to feel bad if you're the other Giants receivers because he just seemed to be forcing him. It didn't matter.
I feel bad about Victor Cruz because he did not do well.
No, it's brutal, though. And I'll tell you something about the Atlanta Falcons. This is interesting for Julio Jones. I know he had the big game, but have you seen the numbers that Matt Ryan's throwing to the backs, Gary? It's unbelievable stuff. Coleman, 132 yards. Freeman, 35. So 165 yards to the backs. What a game plan against Denver. You gotta hand it to Atlanta. They went to the backs and it worked.
Well, you need the safety valves with the pressure they can get, and I think we saw last season. Teams tried that. Denver actually gave up a lot of targets to the running back position last season, but
it worked for Atlanta.
It worked for Atlanta, and I think that was matchup specific with Julio. I wouldn't be too concerned. Tom Brady, one of the big storylines. Over the number.
22 and a half. Keep climbing.
So, I mean, he had 3 touchdowns, 406 yards, comes out with roughly 29 fantasy points. I mean, obviously he went way over. Is this something we can expect now from Brady? Or is this, I mean, again, Brady is good. These are things we know. Tom Brady is very good.
Yes.
The Patriots are very good.
And they love tight ends.
Cleveland sucks.
Yeah, Cleveland blows.
So, can we expect Brady to hit these type of numbers every week, or is this more like, okay, this was like the perfect storm?
It was a perfect storm. Him coming back, him angry, him wanting to put up numbers. Another thing, too, Martellus Bennett. Yeah, he looks fantastic. Him and Brady have a relationship. You got to be pissed off if you're a Gronk owner because
you know what? I'll take 100 yards and 5 catches from Gronk at this point.
But you know what I mean, though?
I know.
Like, I'm talking about the touchdowns are going to Bennett now, but no, to think a guy's going to get close to 30 fantasy points every time, no, Brady wasn't perfect. There were still times that he was running a little, he could have been hit hard. That's against Cleveland. Let's wait till we play a real defense to see what he's happening. But at 22 and a half, don't you have to go over almost every time?
I would say if that's going to be the standard at which we're living, I think over is going to be a very popular play.
I think it's probably going to go to about 27 or 28 next time. They're going to set a higher number.
Cam, you know this, and I know this, but some people might not actually know this. You can play multiple sports on each of these cards.
That's what I like.
So we're not just recapping football, we're recapping baseball from Monday night. So obviously the Giants and Cubs had themselves a nice little game and a nice little pitching matchup. Jake Arrieta against Madison Bumgarner. You had the option of taking Brandon Belt as a half-point favorite against his teammate Brandon Crawford. And tight matchup. Brandon Crawford's double was really the key here as he wins 10 to 6.5. You know what? I would have taken Belt.
Yep, I would.
And I just think it's you look at the power numbers, the ISO, the WOBA, the WRC plus, even the fact that he's just hitting second in the order. Like, give me those plate appearances in head-to-head fantasy matchups. But that double for Crawford was the difference.
Hey man, it was a tight matchup all the way, and what a crazy baseball game too. When you see Arrieta hit a three-run bomb off of Bumgarner, I'm thinking the party's over, but it's not. giant scrape through and very gritty performance by the G-men.
Madison Bumgarner's a history, man. Like, I got to look into this stuff, but I feel like he's given up more home runs to pitchers this season than he has to anyone.
Regular players.
Clayton Kershaw and
Good
Jake
point.
Arrieta and Madison Bumgarner just hitting bombs off each other. Gotta love baseball. And we'll talk about some baseball. When we come back, talk about possibly Clayton Kershaw. He might be starting tonight. We don't even know yet.
It's all a mystery right now.
It's all a mystery. So we're going to break down the NL playoff matchups from a Hot Roster perspective when we come back on Hot Roster today.